For decades, I've covered American politics, and I truly thought I had seen it all. But what is happening right now between the United States and Canada, our closest ally, our neighbor, our partner for generations, is something I never imagined witnessing in my lifetime. We are watching a relationship that survived 2 world wars, built the most integrated economy on Earth, and created a half-billion-person marketplace begin to unravel in real time. And the question being asked from Ottawa to Washington, from Vancouver to Miami is simple. How did we get here? And can we ever go back? I recently spoke with Goldie Hyder, President and CEO of the Business Council of Canada. He's been in the room for some of the most consequential trade negotiations in North American history. He served as Chief of Staff to a former Canadian Prime Minister and testified before the U.S. Trade Representative just last week. What he told me was fascinating, troubling, and surprisingly optimistic. To understand why, we need to set the stage. The current U.S.-Canada tariff fight is unlike anything we've seen in modern diplomacy. Tariffs have been imposed over claims about fentanyl crossing the northern border, claims many experts say don't hold up. Steel and lumber tariffs have surged without warning. And then there was the now infamous Reagan-themed Edict from Ontario's Premier, which used a 1987 Ronald Reagan speech opposing trade wars. President Trump called the ad fraudulent and hostile. Trade talks were briefly halted. All of this is happening as the USMCA, the backbone of North American commerce, heads into a potentially make-or-break review next year. This is the very deal Trump once called the greatest trade agreement ever made, negotiated and signed by his own administration. Now, his top trade official says everything is on the table, including withdrawal. When I asked Goldie Hyder about this, I expected alarm. Instead, he was calm. Books have been written about Trump's negotiating style, he said. This is it, playing out in real time. If you focus on the process instead of the noise, the direction has actually been consistent since January. That word, consistent, caught me off guard. But Hyder explained that Canada was told early on the disputes would be trade-focused, with some exceptions like defense spending and digital taxes. On April 1st, the U.S. gave Canada and Mexico a jus amiga exemption. Why North American economies are still functioning. Canada, in fact, is running a trade surplus with the U.S., even on tariffed goods like steel, something Trump deeply dislikes. What struck me most, though, was how Canada's new Prime Minister framed the moment. After winning an election shaped in part by anti-Trump sentiment, he declared that Canada's old relationship with the United States was over. Hyder disagreed. Forever is a very long time, he told me. Then he offered a remarkable historical reminder. Canada and the U.S. once fought 2 wars. Canada burned down the White House. And yet, here we are. Best friends for generations, relationships change, but they can also be rebuilt. Still, there's no denying how emotional this moment is for Canadians. After the Reagan ad controversy and new tariff threats, Canadian leaders softened their tone, even apologized. I asked whether this was just another example of world leaders trying to placate Trump. Hyder said no, but acknowledged Canada had been called out on real issues. Lagging defense spending, border security gaps, and counter tariffs that left Canada isolated alongside China. So Canada backed off, not out of weakness, but to get back to what Hyder called an adult conversation about renewing the trade deal. And he credited Canada's leadership for confronting it directly, calmly, firmly, and publicly. He also sees a silver lining. This crisis is forcing Canada to diversify its economy. Trade missions to Asia, deeper ties with Europe, and new markets could ultimately reduce Canada's dependence on the U.S. ironically. That could hurt America. If Canada finds other buyers, Americans may end up paying full price for goods they once received at preferential rates, widening the very trade deficits Trump complains about. On the ground, the damage is already visible. Canadian tourism to the U.S. Once the largest source of inbound travel has collapsed. Billions of dollars are disappearing from American hotels, restaurants, and shops. When I asked Hyder how angry Canadians really are, his answer was sobering. There's a deep sense of betrayal, he said, a feeling that a trusted friend turned hostile. He used a hockey metaphor that felt perfect. When emotions run high and elbows go up, you end up in the penalty box. Winning requires patience, discipline, and focus on the puck, not rage. Geography isn't changing. The U.S. still accounts for 75% of Canadian trade. That reality will shape the U.S.-IMCA review, no matter the political drama. But what worries me most isn't tariffs, it's trust.